Hi everyone, I'm Michelle Zimmerman. I'm a sophomore in the W.P. Carey School of Business. I am studying marketing and human resources, and this semester I am finishing my minor in political science, so I'm very excited about that. I chose to write about the second option, so kind of how media obstructs women's representation in politics. And so I have three ways to start out with how that happens, and those three ways are media objectifying women, media reinforcing binary traditional gender roles, and media limiting the amount of coverage that female candidates and female leaders receive. And so in objectifying women, I think the first thing that comes to mind now after taking this course is just the misrepresentation documentary that we watched. I was just blown away by, it was just so eye-opening for me to watch and truly see how sexualized our culture is, and you never feel like, well, at least I don't feel like it really is that sexualized until you're watching that scene. I was actually in a public place when I was watching that scene of just like women and scantily clothed, and they're all, it's like really sexualized and really uncomfortable, and I'm just sitting there in public trying to not let anyone see what I'm watching, which is something that people are watching all around me probably, but I'm uncomfortable because I realize now what's going on in these clips. And in this sexualized culture, it teaches women, especially young girls, to think that they are an object. And so if that subliminal thought is in girls' minds, those same girls who are going to grow up to be business leaders, to be leaders in the education field, lawyers, those women are less likely to develop that political ambition that we've talked about, which is so important in making that step into actually becoming a political candidate. So in reinforcing the binary traditional gender roles, the media really enforces that double bind, the wife of double bind, right? So, Hillary Clinton can't be president because she couldn't even keep her husband from cheating on her, right? So everything that a female candidate's husband or partner does, specifically husband, does, is more detrimental to that female candidate than it is to a male candidate who can't, quote unquote, control their wives. And in limiting the amount of coverage that female candidates get, I don't have to explain why that is negative, right? They're doing positive things, but they're not receiving that same positive that same positive recognition and that same attention that their counterparts are receiving, their male counterparts are receiving. But I think the way that it's more detrimental is if I don't have a media representing the descriptive representation of me in office, then maybe I think it doesn't exist, right? And so we've talked about how valuable the political descriptive representation is, and how that can make women want to run for office just by seeing that there are other women in office. And so if I don't see it, does that mean it doesn't exist for me because I don't know of it? Just through my media outlets, and that's something that I think is really important through the lack of the small amount of media coverage that female candidates receive and leaders. So two ways I think that media could play a more positive role in representing women in politics is if there's a TV show, right, where there's a president or a secretary of state or congressman or senate, someone in the Senate, there's all these positions that are so important and so valued in American culture. If we could have a female cast member in those roles, right? So we walk into the camera goes into the Oval Office and there's a woman sitting at the desk. And instead of it being, oh my gosh, there's a woman sitting at the desk, it's, okay, and we're moving on with the plot, and what is it that we need to handle, and let's talk about foreign affairs, let's talk about the military, because it's a woman and she is just as likely to be able to handle those situations. And so I think it would be so valuable if there was a show that showed things like that, instead of being called Madam Secretary, which is clearly all about having, even just in the name, it's limiting, right? It's all about, a woman is there and that's why this show exists. Instead, what it should be is, this is the show, and oh, the president is a woman. But this is the show, and this is what it's about. It's so cool. It doesn't matter what gender the president is. This is the important part. It's a really cool show, right? And I think the other way the media could play a more positive role would be like just completely cutting out the conversation about female candidate and female leaders' appearances. And Cecily Strong made a really funny joke at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. I don't know, you've probably seen it by now, but if you haven't, you should definitely look it up. She said she made all of the people in attendance raise their hand and say, I will not report on Hillary's clothing or appearance because that is not journalism. And it was really funny, but really true, right? That's something that needs to be said, which is awful. And so 3 hypothetical rules that I would have for a candidate as a campaign manager would be to use, so the first one would be to use the media to your advantage. So in using the media to your advantage, I see that as how Hillary Clinton is now running as Hillary in 2016, Hillary for America. She's not giving the media the power to limit her by calling her by her first name. She's not letting them do that. She is saying, I'm Hillary, and hopefully that also limits the amount of coverage that Bill gets this time around. That's another point. But also, another rule I would have for my candidate would be to use the strategic stereotype theory to your advantage. So when, make sure you're making a big deal about your positive stereotypes and and really downplaying your negative stereotypes that you adhere to, right? And I think the biggest thing is for any candidate is making sure that you can speak in public, and that means speaking to the media and being able to be interviewed and knowing your stuff. If you're not educated on the issues, it doesn't matter, how successful you are in your field or how far you've come, how much work you've done. And this is kind of illustrated in the 2008 infamous interview of Sarah Palin, and she just knew nothing. She wasn't ready for that interview, but I think that would be my main thing, is if you can show that you are ready and you can show that you're a strong candidate, then there should be nothing standing in your way.